In the autumn of 1986, the ground gave up one of its darkest secrets. Construction workers in Sichuan province were doing the kind of work that leaves no mark on history. Digging trenches, moving earth. Nothing remarkable. Then their shovels struck something that shouldn't have been there. Bronze. Ancient. Impossible. They extracted a face from the soil, and what emerged defied every assumption about Asian civilization. It was massive, wider than a meter across, with ears that flared outward like fins. The eyes, though, they were the truly unsettling part. Bulging stalks extending outward as if staring into dimensions the viewer could not perceive. This wasn't art born from any known tradition. There was no precedent for it. And beneath this first artifact lay more. Dozens of masks, each stranger than the last. Bronze trees taller than two-story buildings, their branches adorned with leaves of pure gold. A standing figure nearly the height of a house. The most imposing bronze sculpture ever unearthed from antiquity. All of it deliberately placed into ritual pits and buried. And here's what makes your skin crawl. Not a single Chinese historian, not one scholar across 3,000 years of meticulous record-keeping, wrote down that any of this ever happened. The civilization that created these works possessed metalworking skill that rivaled the finest craftsmen of ancient Greece and Rome. Yet China, the most continuously documented nation on Earth, erased them from history as if they never existed at all. But wait, there's more. Deep in the Amazon rainforest, the same jungle Europeans dismissed for centuries as an empty, primitive wilderness, scientists deployed cutting-edge laser technology in 2022. What they discovered wasn't villages. It was entire networks of cities. Sprawling metropolises connected by roads, arranged around plazas, surrounded by deliberately engineered agricultural zones. Researchers estimate the population in the millions. An entire advanced civilization hidden beneath the canopy, so thoroughly concealed by nature that European explorers never caught a glimpse. And in southern Turkey, perched on a hill that farmers had plowed around for generations, archaeologists uncovered something that shattered everything textbooks claimed about human progress. A temple, 12,000 years old, built before anyone farmed, before anyone made pottery, before metalworking, before writing, before every single prerequisite that historians said had to come first. The people who constructed it were supposed to be incapable of such feats. They were nomadic hunter-gatherers. Yet the temple stands as proof that our entire understanding of human development might be backwards. Welcome to Infinite Findings, where the ground beneath our feet holds answers we never knew to search for. Today, we're excavating 10 civilizations that archaeologists struggled to believe actually existed. Civilizations that forced scholars to rewrite the textbooks. And when we reach number 1, you'll see why the entire foundation of human history had to be rebuilt. Stay with us. By the end, you'll never look at history the same way. Number 10. Nan Madol. In the middle of the Pacific Ocean, 3,000 kilometers from any continent, lies a construction that defies logic. 92 artificial islands rise from a coral reef, built not from earth or sand, but from stone. Massive black basalt columns, some weighing as much as 50 tons, some stretching longer than a school bus. These columns are arranged, precisely arranged, horizontally and vertically, interlocking like children's building blocks, creating walls 8 meters high. Here's the problem nobody can solve. There's no basalt on this reef. None. The nearest source is across open ocean on the main island. Someone moved tens of thousands of multi-ton stone columns across water and stacked them on a coral foundation. That's not just impressive engineering. That's impossible engineering. The city. Yes, it's a city, not just a monument. Took shape between 1200 and 1500 CE as the center of power for the Çatalhöyük dynasty. Smithsonian researchers calculate the entire complex spans 1.5 square kilometers of reef and lagoon. The islands are connected by canals deep enough for canoes to navigate. The locals call it the Venice of the Pacific. But everything we know about construction physics says this shouldn't exist. Historical records estimate 750,000 tons of basalt stone comprise the entire structure. In 1995, experimental archaeologists attempted something simple: move one basalt column using only traditional technology. Wooden rollers, wooden sledges, manpower. They assembled dozens of workers. The project stretched far longer than the timeline would permit if this method were used for all 750,000 tons. The Pohnpei people, descendants of the Çatalhöyük dynasty, have their own explanation. According to oral traditions, their rulers didn't move the stones across water through labor. The stones flew. They levitated. They drifted through air and landed in perfect formation. The archaeologists say that's impossible. The archaeologists also cannot explain how it was actually done. But the stones remain. Impossibly placed. Impossibly there. Number 9. The Garamantes. Imagine the Sahara Desert at its most extreme. The Fezzan region of what is now Libya. Summer temperatures exceeding 50 degrees Celsius. Rainfall so minimal it barely registers. A wasteland. A dead zone. Hundreds of thousands of people thrived there for 1,000 years. From 500 BCE until around 700 CE. The Garamantes controlled this region as a true state-level society. Not scattered nomadic groups scratching out survival. An actual civilization with fortified towns, monumental tombs, organized government, and a population that some researchers place in the hundreds of thousands. The obvious question surfaces immediately. How? How do you sustain hundreds of thousands of people in a desert with no rivers, no lakes, no precipitation? The answer lies beneath the sand. Archaeological surveys led by Professor David Mattingly identified over 600 underground tunnels, called fogaras, stretching for hundreds of kilometers beneath the desert surface. These weren't random ditches. They were engineered systems tapping into a fossil aquifer. Ancient water locked in rock formations deep underground. It accumulated over tens of thousands of years when the climate was far wetter. Gravity did the work. Water flowing through the fogaras reached the surface without a single pump, without any mechanized assistance. It irrigated farmland. It filled reservoirs. It sustained civilization in a place that should have been abandoned within weeks. Rome noticed. The Garamantes were powerful enough to raid Roman territories along the North African coast. They struck Roman settlements and retreated into the Sahara where Roman legions couldn't pursue. The desert itself became their shield. No supply chain could stretch that far. But Rome didn't destroy them. The Garamantes destroyed themselves. Hydrogeological analysis published in peer-reviewed journals reveals the truth. The fossil water was finite. It accumulated over tens of thousands of years during a different climate. The Garamantes used it for approximately 1,000 years. And then it was gone. The water table dropped. The civilization ended. The empire that Rome couldn't conquer, that the desert couldn't defeat, fell to simple mathematics. The water ran out. Number 8. Ciudad Perdida. The story doesn't begin with archaeologists. It begins with thieves. In 1972, looters, tomb robbers searching for artifacts to sell on the black market, were hacking through jungle on the Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta in Colombia, when they noticed something: a stone staircase. Not eroded rubble. Not random rocks. A constructed staircase. They followed it. 1,000 steps. Upward through the forest. Through vegetation so thick that it had concealed what lay above for centuries. At the summit, they found a city. 169 stone terraces carved into the mountainside at 900 meters elevation. Plazas. Pathways. Retaining walls. An urban settlement covering 13 hectares. Hidden beneath jungle canopy, so dense that no aerial survey, no satellite imaging, no modern reconnaissance had ever detected it. The looters called it El Infierno Verde. The Green Hell. They kept it quiet, methodically selling gold figurines and pottery through illegal antiquities markets. But silence doesn't last. When unusually high volumes of Tirona gold artifacts flooded the black market, authorities traced them backward through networks and dealers, until they reached the Sierra Nevada. Archaeological investigation revealed the truth. The Tirona civilization constructed Ciudad Perdida around 800 CE, 650 years before Machu Picchu. Researchers estimate the city housed between 2,000 and 8,000 residents. But it wasn't isolated. Ciudad Perdida served as the political and manufacturing hub of a network spanning over 200 settlements across the mountains. The Tirona didn't simply clear land and build. They engineered the mountain itself. Geological surveys document that the terraces are precision-constructed platforms, not cleared areas. Each includes sophisticated drainage systems designed to prevent erosion on steep slopes. The agriculture that sustained this urban center was managed with technical expertise that rivals modern farming practices. When Spanish conquistadors arrived in the Americas, they pushed inland, searching for cities of gold. They never found Ciudad Perdida. The jungle kept the secret. The Tirona people abandoned their mountain city, but the forest refused to surrender it. For centuries, the terraces and plazas lay hidden beneath growth so complete that even indigenous peoples living in the region didn't remember what lay beneath the trees. It took grave robbers to reveal what time had buried. Number 7. Çatalhöyük. Some cities seem deliberately arranged to frustrate comprehension. Çatalhöyük in central Turkey is one of them. Built around 7,500 BCE, this urban center housed between 5,000 and 10,000 residents packed into a space barely larger than a town block. Mud brick dwellings stood so close they shared walls. Houses connected to other houses. There were no streets. No public avenues. Residents navigated across rooftops from dwelling to dwelling. Entry occurred through openings in the roof. The entire city was essentially vertical. The walls that face inward are remarkably uniform in their complete emptiness. No windows. No doors at ground level. Nobody was looking outward. Nobody was leaving. The residents deliberately sealed off the interior world from external threats. Archaeologists uncovered something even more curious. Beneath the plaster of numerous dwellings, they found murals. Paintings created by the residents. Handprints. Scenes of hunting and ritual. And in rooms that appear to be shrines, they discovered the remains of animals. Horns and skulls embedded into walls, suggesting religious ceremonies or spiritual practices. The people who lived in Çatalhöyük weren't simply surviving. They were creating art. They had beliefs elaborate enough to manifest in material form. The social structure remains enigmatic. Excavation hasn't revealed temples, palaces, or elaborate tombs suggesting a ruling class. No archaeological evidence points to significant inequality. No artifacts indicate military power or organized violence beyond what would be necessary for hunting. It's as if 7,500 years ago, people organized themselves into a functioning urban center without the hierarchical power structures we assume are necessary. The mystery of Çatalhöyük is that it worked. For centuries, it worked. Number 6. Cahokia. In present-day Illinois, 40 miles east of St. Louis, lies a landscape that most people pass without noticing. Grassy mounds rise from flatland. Abandoned ridges. What appears to be natural terrain. It isn't natural. It's artificial. It's planned. It's the remnants of Cahokia. At its peak, around 1100 CE, Cahokia was enormous. Estimates place the population between 10 and 20,000. Rivaling London at the same historical period. The city covered 6 square miles. Over 80 mounds still exist, though construction probably created over 120. The largest, Monk's Mound, rises 110 feet, higher than the Statue of Liberty. It took millions of baskets of earth, moved by hand, to construct. The labor investment was staggering. Cahokia emerged from Mississippian culture, and what makes Cahokia remarkable is what it lacks. Archaeologists have found no palace, no temple, no concentrated symbol of royal authority. Extensive excavation reveals no evidence of a single ruler, no massive tombs, no markers of dynastic succession. The plazas and mounds are all egalitarian in scale and arrangement. The residents engineered a city without a king, without organized religion in the form we typically recognize, without the social inequality that we believe is prerequisite for urban complexity. And it thrived. It sustained tens of thousands of people. It developed sophisticated trade networks. It created art and craft. And then, around 1350 CE, it was abandoned. People left. Why remains unclear. Cahokia was a civilization that proved hierarchical power isn't necessary for civilization itself. And then it vanished. Number 5. Sanxingdui. In western China, another mystery wrapped in bronze emerged from the earth in the 20th century. Archaeological teams uncovered ritual pits filled with strange artifacts, bronze vessels, stone sculptures. The pieces were sophisticated and unlike anything Chinese civilization had produced during the same period. The dating pushed them back to around 1600 to 1200 BCE, and the images carved into the bronze matched nothing in the documented record. One sculpture is particularly disturbing. A large head with exaggerated facial features. The proportions are wrong. Deliberately wrong. The face appears to represent something other than human anatomy. Some researchers theorize the artist was depicting spiritual beings or deity figures. Others suggest the work represents cultural traditions that have no descendant in modern Chinese civilization. Entire ritual vessels were discovered intentionally broken before burial. Objects were ritually damaged. This suggests the artifacts weren't simply stored or preserved. They were ceremonially destroyed and buried, implying religious practices that valued the ritual act of destruction. The implications are profound. A civilization existed in ancient China with sophisticated bronzeworking technology, developed religious practices, and artistic traditions. Yet no Chinese historical text mentions them. Not one character in the extensive archives of Chinese history records their existence. This civilization developed independently from the documented Chinese dynasties, with its own trajectory, its own culture. And then it disappeared. The people left. Or perhaps they were absorbed into surrounding populations. But they left no written explanation. The bronze artifacts alone testify to their presence. Number 4. Akrotiri. In Greece, on the island of Santorini, the eruption of Thera, a massive volcanic event around 1600 BCE, preserved an entire city in volcanic ash. Akrotiri was a prosperous port city built vertically into cliff faces. Multi-story buildings rose upward with sophisticated architecture, interior plumbing, and careful construction. Residents enjoyed access to flowing water. Evidence suggests organized waste management. The buildings displayed aesthetic intention. Painted walls, decorated pottery, carefully arranged furnishings. The eruption buried the city rapidly, and the ash sealed everything in time. When excavation occurred, archaeologists discovered rooms with painted frescoes still vibrant on the walls. Pottery vessels in storage chambers. Food remains. Textiles preserved by the lack of oxygen. The preservation was so thorough that fingerprints left by someone shaping clay over 3,000 years ago remain visible on pottery fragments. But here's the crucial detail. No bodies were found. Akrotiri contains no skeletal remains of the residents. Archaeological evidence suggests the entire population evacuated before the final eruption. The people sensed the danger. They left. They took their most valued possessions. They walked away from their city. And then the volcano took what they abandoned. Somewhere, descendants of Akrotiri's people lived out their lives. They talked about the day they fled the burning mountain. They passed stories to children and grandchildren. But history doesn't record where they went. History doesn't tell us if their descendants ever returned to search for their ancestral city. They simply vanished from our knowledge, leaving behind a city perfectly preserved by catastrophe. Number 3. The Amazon cities. For 500 years, Europeans called the Amazon empty. A wilderness. A place without civilization. Colonizers, conquistadors, and explorers ventured inland and reported back. Untamed jungle, scattered indigenous peoples, no cities, no architecture, nothing that qualified as advanced civilization by European standards. The assumption persisted for centuries. The Amazon is a natural wilderness. Humans lived here, yes, but they never developed sophisticated urban culture. The jungle was simply too challenging, too unforgiving. The forest always wins. Then, in 2022, researchers deployed LiDAR, light detection and ranging, laser scanning that cuts through the forest canopy, revealing the earth beneath. The technology exposed what vegetation had hidden. Cities. Not villages. Not settlements. Entire metropolitan networks. Plazas. Roads. Aqueducts. Agricultural zones engineered to maximize productivity. The scale is staggering. Some estimates place the pre-Columbian Amazon population in the millions. The urban centers suggest centralized organization, long-distance trade, and sophisticated resource management. The societies that built these cities created complexity in one of Earth's most challenging environments. What happened to them? The answer arrives with European contact. Indigenous populations had no immunity to old-world diseases. Smallpox, measles, influenza. The epidemic swept through the Amazon, killing an estimated 90% of indigenous peoples within a century. The surviving populations couldn't maintain the engineered agricultural zones. The forest reclaimed what humans had managed. The cities returned to wilderness. The ruins lay beneath centuries of regrowth. By the time Europeans established long-term settlements, they found only forest. They had no idea a thriving civilization had existed there. They had no memory of the cities. And so the assumption took hold. The Amazon was always wild. Always empty. Number 2. The Sanxingdui masks. Return to Sichuan Province, China. The bronze heads that initially emerged from construction ditches in 1986 represent one of archaeology's most perplexing discoveries. These aren't stylized representations in a recognizable tradition. They are deeply strange, alien in appearance. Each mask displays protruding eyes mounted on stalks, ears that flare impossibly outward, facial proportions that seem deliberately distorted or non-human. The craftsmanship is extraordinary. The metalworking is flawless. Yet the artistic vision behind them is completely foreign to any documented Asian tradition. Some researchers speculate the faces represent shamanic visions, spirit beings, deity figures. Others suggest cultural contact with distant peoples, indicating trade networks extending far beyond known historical connections. The profound mystery is the silence. Chinese historical documentation is meticulous. The nation developed written language earlier than most civilizations. Historians recorded everything. Wars, successions, natural events, celestial observations, all carefully preserved in archives spanning thousands of years. Yet this civilization, sophisticated enough to produce these remarkable bronzes, experienced no such documentation. One possibility haunts scholars. What if these people didn't integrate into later Chinese civilization? What if they were displaced, eliminated, their culture suppressed and erased from historical record? The bronzes suggest they had the technological sophistication to pose a threat. Yet Chinese history simply skips over them. The narrative jumps from one dynasty to another, and this entire advanced culture exists in the gap. The masks stare out from museum displays, and no one can tell you who made them. No one can explain why Chinese historians forgot they ever existed. Number 1. Göbekli Tepe. Everything changes now. In 1994, a shepherd named Savik Yildiz was walking across a hillside near Şanlıurfa in southeastern Turkey. Something caught his eye. A stone protruding from the earth. It wasn't limestone like the rest of the hillside. It had a flat surface. It had been carved. He reported it. The report reached the Şanlıurfa Museum. The museum contacted the German Archaeological Institute. In 1995, archaeologist Klaus Schmidt arrived at the hilltop and began excavation. What emerged from the ground over the following years didn't just change understanding of local history. It rewrote the entire story of human civilization. Beneath the soil lay circular enclosures, built from massive T-shaped limestone pillars. Some weighed over 15 tons. Some reached nearly 6 meters in height. Each pillar was carved with precise reliefs depicting animals. Foxes, boars, snakes, vultures, scorpions, lions. Rendered in a style that had no precedent anywhere in the archaeological record. Radiocarbon dating indicated construction at approximately 9,500 BCE, 12,000 years ago. Here's why that date is catastrophic to established knowledge. 12,000 years ago, humans were supposed to be hunter-gatherers. No agriculture. No domesticated animals. No permanent settlements. No surplus food. No social complexity. Certainly no organized labor capable of quarrying, transporting, and erecting 15-ton carved stone pillars. Every textbook taught the same model of human development. Farming comes first. Surplus food allows permanent settlement. Settlement allows social complexity. Social complexity allows organized labor. Organized labor allows monumental construction. Religion and temples emerge at the end, after civilization is already established. Göbekli Tepe inverts this entire sequence. Klaus Schmidt's analysis, published before his death in 2014, found no evidence of permanent habitation at the site. No houses. No storage facilities. No agricultural tools. The people who built this temple were hunter-gatherers who traveled to the hilltop, constructed the enclosures, and then left. They returned periodically to add more structures. But they never settled. They never farmed. The implication is staggering. The desire to create a sacred space, to build a temple, to construct monumental architecture predated every structural element of civilization we thought was prerequisite. Religion didn't emerge from civilization. Civilization may have emerged from the religious impulse itself. The archaeological community reacted with divided response. Some researchers challenged Schmidt's interpretation, suggesting the site might represent a transitional settlement rather than purely ritual space. Evidence of grain processing at nearby contemporary sites indicates early agriculture may have been developing simultaneously with Göbekli Tepe construction. Perhaps the sequence isn't inverted as cleanly as Schmidt proposed. But even these counterarguments cannot explain the pillars. The labor organization. The coordination required. The sophistication of carving. Any model struggles to account for it. Experimental archaeology conducted by the German Archaeological Institute calculated that moving a single 15-ton T-shaped pillar from the limestone source, roughly 100 meters away, would require at least 500 coordinated workers. Feeding 500 hunter-gatherers at one location for the duration of a construction project requires food management on a scale previously associated only with agricultural societies. The sheer logistics of Göbekli Tepe's existence demand an explanation that our current models of human development cannot provide. And there's something else. Something scholars rarely emphasize. The site was not abandoned. It was buried. Deliberately. Schmidt's excavation records document with precision. The enclosures were filled systematically, layer by layer. Rubble, earth, animal bones, stone tools. The T-shaped pillars were covered. The animal carvings were sealed beneath tons of fill. Someone, or many someones, invested enormous effort to hide what they had built. Schmidt estimated the burial project was as labor-intensive as the original construction. They didn't walk away from Göbekli Tepe. They erased it. They placed it underground intentionally. For 10,000 years it remained hidden. Beneath a Turkish hillside. Shepherds walked over the site every day for 100 centuries without knowing the oldest monumental architecture on Earth was beneath their feet. A shepherd noticed a peculiar stone. An archaeologist spent decades digging. And when the Earth finally gave up its secret, it forced a complete rewrite of human history itself. We were told a story. Survival comes first. Farming comes second. Villages emerge from agricultural surplus. Cities arise from villages. Gods and temples come last, as the ornament on an already complex civilization. Göbekli Tepe says that story might be exactly backwards. The gods came first. The temples came first. The impulse to create sacred space preceded farming. It preceded settlement. It may have triggered everything that followed. For 12,000 years, humans have built cities, organized empires, created art, developed technology, accumulated knowledge. But we may have started building for a reason that predates all of that. We built because we sensed something divine, something transcendent, something worth organizing our entire society around. What we uncover beneath the ground is constantly reshaping our understanding of what came before. 10 civilizations. 10 stories of what we forgot or never knew. Nan Madol rising impossibly from the Pacific. The Garamantes drinking from an aquifer older than history. Ciudad Perdida hidden in the Amazon for centuries. Çatalhöyük proving urban life without hierarchy is possible. Cahokia building monumental civilization without kings. Sanxingdui creating art we still cannot explain. Akrotiri preserving a moment in time through volcanic preservation. The Amazon cities proving that jungle can sustain millions. The Sanxingdui masks staring from museum displays with blank, unknowable eyes. And Göbekli Tepe, buried beneath a Turkish hill, holding the secret that everything we thought we knew about human origins might be incomplete. Every one of these civilizations was invisible, hidden beneath ash, concealed by forest, buried under sand, surrounded by ocean, erased by assumptions about what shouldn't exist. And every single one, when it surfaced, fractured something we believed. The textbooks aren't wrong. They're incomplete. Every time someone notices an unusual stone in the dirt, every time a researcher points LiDAR through a jungle canopy, every time a bulldozer strikes something it wasn't meant to find, the incomplete parts expand. The unknown portions grow. The mystery deepens. The ground beneath our feet still contains what we haven't discovered. The ocean floor holds secrets we haven't searched for. The world is far more complicated than our maps suggest. And somewhere, right now, there's a civilization sitting beneath a hill or hidden under vegetation that someone passes every day without a second glance. That next discovery will shatter another assumption. It will force another rewrite. Which of these civilizations most challenged your understanding of history? Tell us in the comments. We want to know which story resonated with you. If you reach the end of this video, you already know Infinite Findings is the channel for you. Like this video. Subscribe. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next discovery. Because the next civilization we uncover might rewrite human history all over again. We will see you in the next one.